Welcome, guys, to the Breakdown Daily Recap. I'm Breaking CBK, of course. Today is February 2nd, 2018, and we got plenty to talk about today. It turns out later on yesterday, after I finished my daily recap yesterday, shortly after, a pretty big patch came out called Spring Cleaning. We're going to take a look at that. There's also a couple things that we need to go over, including the WESG event that, of course, that I'm currently in Kiev for, casting the North American and South American regional main event portions, and then the Starladder taking place, and we'll take a closer look at that, see how that's been shaping up, any fun things to talk about from that event. But I figured it made sense to start with a patch. Again, this isn't a huge patch notes video by any means. We're just going to quickly go over it, just go over a couple of the bigger things, specifically more focused on the competitive scene that I think at least could have impact. If you haven't got the chance to check out the patch yet, there are several other pieces of content out there, Purge most noticeably, that does a huge patch content piece usually on every big patch like this that comes out, so highly recommend watching him or checking it out for yourself if you haven't, because again, as we also saw yesterday, IceFrog made the announcement that every other Thursday, Thursday, right? Yeah, every other Thursday, so every 2 Thursdays, patch would be coming out. Now, I don't think it's going to be on this scale by any means every single Thursday or every 2 Thursdays, but this is to kind of kick it off now, and moving forward, every 2 Thursdays, there will be more minor patches that'll be happening. But this being the spring cleaning patch, so taking a closer look, pretty appropriate name because a lot of the changes in this patch were actually quality of life changes, which is pretty cool. There was quite a bit, including one of the more things that they focused on from the very beginning here, including just simply your player profile. And it's stuff like that, with the game, especially for new players, and there's so much other competition out there with a lot of different games, it just helps make it more appealing. Stat tracking is one of the bigger things when it comes to Dota 2 that people can appreciate, but usually it's based on, all these third-party websites like a Dat Dota or Dota Buff or whatever, but they're doing a good job of within the game actually making it that much more appealing to look at your own profile and see how things are going on from your recent games to your most successful heroes, and you can even customize your profile to an extent with like changing your background as well as like your featured heroes, as it says. So it's just fun stuff. Again, quality of life changes make the game a little more appealing. Obviously not necessarily competitive focused here, but one thing that is a little bit competitive focused, maybe I could see players warming up with, is the new last hit trainer that was added. I actually haven't tried it out for myself, but apparently it's essentially a custom map within the game that you could just queue up for real quickly, and you just simply last hit. It's to exercise last hitting. It's got some some fancy graphics to it, and it makes you feel like you're almost playing like a mini game of sorts. So, but yeah, I could definitely see players using it to warm up and help with their last hitting going into actual matches. So that's something that's pretty cool. Buyback notifications for spectators was added, making it more obvious who actually bought back and win. Pro Circuit tournament tab. So speaking of competitive change, quality of life change still, but obviously, they do a good job of having all this material within the game, but it is a little tough to find sometimes. So they're going about trying to make it a bit easier to find when it comes to watching tournaments, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, more and more things, the whole 6-month matchmaking ban, again, if you haven't heard that, Valve has made a point that in strict cases especially, they're going to start banning accounts for 6 months at a time. And there's already been screenshots of people that have been getting these bans, so I kind of sit back and smile because I think it's safe to say that people that get the 6 months bans are definitely deserving. And it's cool to see Valve stepping up and making sure to do so for those that are deserving. All right, so let's go down to the balance still. Again, there's a lot of these quality of life changes. But taking a look at the balance changes that happen, so yeah, we're more than halfway through the page, as you can see. So again, this was more about quality of life, but there were some balance changes that took place. And a couple of the more standout ones, I think, as, kind of scrolling through. First off, general changes. Basic things like Tier 1 Tower Armor Aura increased from 1 to 2, so a little more efficient Tier 1 towers right there. Bounty Runes base XP reduced from 25 to 0, so you no longer get experience from the beginning. It's kind of the point right there with the initial Bounty Rune spawn, so something to keep in mind as well. First on the item change list, Aeon Disc, 80 to 70% threshold. We've talked about this several times, how that's one of the changes they could have potentially made to try to buff the item and help it be more appealing. Because although, it may seem like a nerf initially, it's not. The idea that it needs more damage to ultimately proc means it's that much more of a saving tool, where players before could play around where they just need to get you to 80% life to proc, and they could just do that, then wait it out, and then go in for the finish. Now it's a little bit lower. I still think it could be lower even, but it's a step in the right direction at least. Battle Fury getting a decent nerf. It's not a nerf that's going to make it not completely seen at all, but it's a nerf. It hurts specifically Phantom Lancer and even a Terrorblade, where creep bonuses no longer works with the illusions. So that's something to keep in mind. Those two heroes specifically are definitely going to feel the nerf. Other than that, probably not going to be that big of a deal, and we'll still see it on a lot of heroes in my opinion. BKB got cooldown rescaled, so it's actually better at the earlier levels when you initially get it, but later on it becomes much less effective, I guess. It's still useful, of course, but essentially when you're all the way down to a 5-second BKB, what normally would be a 55-second cooldown is now still just a 70-second cooldown, so that's 15 seconds longer. That could be pretty significant when you're fighting in that late game stage especially. So not the biggest nerf in the world when you really look at it, but it still is a nerf overall to BKB. Blink Dagger, 12 to 14 second cooldown now. Again, it's one of those, we're still going to see Blink Dagger on every hero that gets it anyways, but now just you have to keep in mind it's going to be 2 seconds longer before you can use it again. A couple other ones. Meteor Hammer has been a fun one to talk about. We've actually seen already the Meteor Hammer change having a little bit of effect. We'll get to that a little bit more, but Starladder with Mushi playing OD, he actually picked it up with his first item in their match against Kingwin, and it was ultimately a winning effort actually. So 40 to 28 seconds on the cooldown. That's quite the significant decrease right there. An understandable way. Maybe we could start seeing this item perhaps, but other items, that's pretty much it worth going over as far as the bigger ones. Again, I don't want to sit here and break down every single one. That's not the point of this. A couple that stood out to me as far as hero changes. Lion's Mana Drain now slows targets. I don't think it's going to all of a sudden put him on the scene, but I found that kind of interesting. Nice buff to the ability, probably needed. Medusa got nerfed / buffed. She actually got buffed in a couple of cases with her talents, but her level 20 talent, as well as the Mystic Snake ability, was the cast range was reduced. So overall, I think it's a nerf, but it's a very, very safe nerf. That's a good way to put it. Lycan did get pretty heavily nerfed. His shapeshift cooldown was actually increased at the earlier and especially at the later levels. It used to be 60 seconds, now 80 seconds at level 3. So that's really significant. The base armor also reduced by 1. One of those kind of, fun changes there, but unless his synergy with minions gets nerfed somehow and other skills, I don't think it's going to all of a sudden drop Lycan. Like, having the shapeshift cooldown 20 seconds more, I feel like is not going to necessarily make the hero die off completely. So, other than that, Shadow Fiend, his Necromastery, max souls was reduced, specifically at the early level. The biggest one being the level 1. Now you can only get 12 max souls compared to 18 before. So that makes the start a little bit slower when it comes to getting those souls and trying to be an effective last hitter. Could slow down the overall farm of Shadow Fiend a little bit. Shadow Shaman did get some nerfs both to Ether Shock and Shackles. So taking him away a little bit of his competitive potential. And I think that's pretty much it. So again, there's obviously more changes in the spring cleaning update. You can check it out for yourself if you like. But overall, I think it's a great patch. The quality of life stuff is honestly really cool. And it's, once again, more steps in the right direction for Valve and for the game of Dota 2. So excited for it. Not the biggest when it comes to competitive Dota 2, but there were still some changes that will definitely have impact. But I look forward to that every 2 Thursdays, definitely. So 2 weeks from now, essentially can expect another patch, and we'll see how big that one is, though. All right, so talking about Starladder, I already kind of mentioned Mineski against Kingwin, and again, they ended up winning that series 2-0, but in the game 2, Mushi actually went that, the meme hammer, as people call it, but the Meteor Hammer on OD, and that game ended up being a 66-minute game that ended up going the distance where they had to come back from mega creeps, actually. So that was pretty insane. Again, I wasn't up to watch it, unfortunately, but I heard a lot of highlights this morning of the match. It was a pretty insane comeback. Mega Creeps by Kingwin was not enough to get the victory. Even with a lone druid Lycan, that's crazy to me that they weren't actually able to finish the game, but they weren't able to. So Mineski won it 2-0. They moved on to the next round. Newbie beat Empire 2-1 though, so Empire actually winning the first game in this series. Very interesting there. Newbie, however, came back to win Game 2 and Game 3 to win the series, but props to Empire, especially with using a stand-in player in Nyx in place of Silent going into this event kind of last minute. It sounds like he actually did fairly well himself. I believe he played the Tinker the first game in their winning effort and did a great job. So Empire at least taking a game. Ultimately, Newbie getting the better of them in the series. And then Newbie did take out Mineski 2-1 in the deciding match to move on to the playoffs, that is. So Mineski's still in it, but now they just have to face off again. Well, will ultimately be the winner of Kingwin versus Empire. So things are really shaping up as expected. Again, the really only big thing was that Empire actually took a game off of Newbie. Outside of that, I think it's pretty standard results. I did pick Kingwin over Mineski, but I'm not surprised by any means that Mineski beat Kingwin. That was one of those cases that, I had to choose a team. I would lean towards Kingwin, but Mineski getting the better of them there in that series. Kingwin still could move on, to be fair. Again, there is still hope. Speaking of that, on Group A now, those matches also going to be taking place. Complexity versus Infamous, and then the winner of that will play LGD. I hope for Complexity to look strong once again and at least get to face off against LGD, but I still think LGD is going to be the team advancing on. So, as far as Group B, I'm going to stick with Kingwin still. It's not over just yet. They still got the group stages to play through, so I'll still go with Kingwin out of Group B. So I got LGD from Group A, Kingwin from Group B. We'll see then how the playoffs look from there. WESG, so that's what I'm here for once again in Kiev, casting the North American and South American main event, I guess you can call it. Again, ultimately 4 teams from North America moving on and 3 from South America moving on to the main event, which is a $1 million push prize pool and everything. It's North America at least has definitely been going as expected. Team USA and Team Canada, they're the ones that are top. Play for Fun's actually up there as well. The other team out of Canada with Clairvoyance, J.O., Boris, and crew. They've been fun to watch too. They still, plenty more matches to play today. Whether or not you finish first or fourth in the group stages doesn't really matter. It just puts you then in the brackets to then where you've already gone on, but then you play for the prize pool at this event. So, but Team USA, they did get the better of Team Canada. That was the big matchup yesterday. Myself and Gareth got the chance to cast it. It was just action-packed. It was crazy back and forth. It's one of those games where if you happen to miss it and you like watching Dota, I would recommend watching it. It ended up being a very entertaining game with a lot of kills happening. But again, Team USA winning that, and they remain undefeated in the group stages. We did have the, not drama, but the unfortunate circumstance of Blue Pikachu deciding to forfeit the rest of their matches after, I think they lost their first 2 matches. And then they made the announcement that they were just going to not play anymore. So they forfeited the rest of their matches. That meant the teams that were going to play them then obviously just got default wins, understandably. So that also meant the amount of matches was a little bit less, especially going into today. But it's pretty much coming down to whether or not Team Ecuador or Team Mexico can get into that 3rd, 4th place spot. Outside of that, it's going to be the expected. The North American, the Canadian teams advancing on, unless we have some crazy result here with the last couple of matches that we do have on later today. So we'll see. South America also going on and kicking off today with the group stages. We've actually casted a couple of those games. Let me pull it up here. There we go. So with South America, 3 of the 5 teams actually advance on, and it's similar to the North American region where you got 3 teams that you probably expect to move on, and it's kind of playing out that way so far. You have Pain Gaming, SG Esports, both from Brazil, and then you have Team Peru with players, you're looking at Van, Smash, Z-Talk. These are players that unfortunately are banned from official Valve events for match fixing in the past, but this is one of these few events where they're able to participate, being a non-Valve official event. So they're taking advantage of that, and they're a fun team to watch. They beat SG Esports earlier today, but then we just casted this series against Pain Gaming, and Pain Gaming got the better of them, actually, in that series. And, I was going into this, honestly, expecting a lot out of Team Peru, maybe expecting them to go undefeated into the main event, but, no, Pain Gaming, a team to look out for, perhaps. Tavo, especially. He played a mean Sand King in that game against Team Peru. So, but it's shaping up again. If one of those 3 teams do not make it on to the main event, that would just be a complete shock, honestly, as far as how this is all shaping up. So that's the South American region going on. Other than that, only one other piece of info to bring up. This is the talent announcement for the Bucharest Major. That'll be happening at the end of this month, I want to say, or midway through this month, maybe? Yeah, coming up here. Maybe a couple weeks from now, actually. But point is, as you may notice, it's pretty heavy on the Moonduck side, so they got their talent in there. Even Suns fan there as a caster and crew. So there are still a couple of the others, Capitalist, Toby Wan, Jack even, going to be there as well. But overall, pretty heavy on the Moonduck side. So we'll see it. It's obviously going to be a fun event, a pretty big deal being the Bucharest Major, and looking forward to great coverage from this event and seeing how it all plays out. Again, I believe it's in a couple of weeks from now. March 4th through, okay, so it's actually next month. It is a month away. So March 4th through 11th. And you see the team list. Yeah, that's right. This is the one where Complexity was even invited from the American region, a 16-team tournament. That's going to be a good event, man. Especially with PGL production. They do a great job always. So looking forward to that one, about a month away here. Okay, I think that pretty much covers it, though, for the daily recap for today. As always, guys, want to thank you for tuning in on what was February 2nd, 2018. Had plenty to talk about again today, so I'm sure we'll see you guys tomorrow. More to talk about, more updates on Starladder and even WSG. And until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, all over the place. We'll see you then.